When we talk about excess, about having too much of everything, we always or often think of America and pickup trucks. And in Europe, we got the Ford Ranger, the Volkswagen Amarok and the Toyota Hilux. But those are relatively small when you think of American pickup trucks, such as the F-150, the Dodge Ram, and those types of pickup trucks. They are just bigger. And if you want something that can go everywhere, the name Raptor is a model that comes up to mind. Bigger engine, bigger suspension, bigger tires, bigger body, bigger everything. And speaking of the engine, we have here the 3.5 liter V6 twin turbocharged Ford Performance EcoBoost engine. Produces 460 horsepower and 700 Newton meters of torque. You might wonder why this doesn't have a V8. Well, there is the Raptor R. And that competes with the Ram TRX. But this is more than enough. And when we go on-road and off-road, I'll tell you exactly how this engine fits this F-150 Raptor. There's no denying that this is an F-150. Enormous. But with the Raptor, there are some exterior tweaks as well. Beefier front, extra lights, this lower grille or lower bar, tow hooks, these extra lights. And if you follow to the side, you see these 37-inch off-road tires. These are friction tires, winter tires, because we are in Sweden and we have -degrees here, so that will also be very interesting to see how the Raptor handles that kind of weather. But if you follow me to the hood, there's the bulge that people talk about, the Raptor bulge. So Raptor logo here, you see it when you drive it and you see the entire hood. Very easy to park, but also such a big car that I find myself using the 360-degree cameras more often than not. To the side here, you see the fender wideners. Very important here in Europe. The tires are not allowed to stick out further than the body. And you have this step when you get into the car. And it's actually needed even for me, that's 187. This is a crew cab, meaning 4 doors, and you fit 5 people extremely comfortable. I'll talk more about the interior later, but this is not only offering amazing off-road performance, this is a luxury car. And you might not think of a F-150 as a luxury car, but I'll show you that that is exactly the case. The Ford F-150 Raptor logo just looks mean, right? The upgraded exhaust for the upgraded Ford F-150 Raptor now have a trumpet or trombone exhaust, so at certain revs and especially in the Baja exhaust mode, sounds ridiculously good. There's some pops even when you change gear. Sounds incredible. Very square shape, of course, since it's being a pickup. The rear tailgate is electrically operated. And then you can just slide up the step. Bed liners, so you don't have to worry about scratching anything. There's an electric outlet for working on the tailgate. Some straps holders as well. This car is not meant for work. This is not a F-150 work truck. This is for going off-road and that types of stuff, which means that you won't be able to tow or load as much as a regular F-150. Real solid grab handle here. Step and you're in. And you need that step to be able to get in, because this is very high up. An amazing amount of knee space and a real good amount of foot space as well. Good plastic carpet so you don't get stuff dirty. Air vents for the rear, individually climate control as well. This is a big truck. You feel it both outside and inside. You have a panoramic sunroof, which even in some more luxurious cars you don't get. And in the driver's seat, and you sit like a king. These seats are really comfortable, but they do have some side support, so when you go off-road and are moving about, you get some support. But if I start the car, of course some beeps, but you see the latest Sync 4 infotainment system, just a continuation of what Ford knows best. Because this is a really good infotainment system. Really easy to navigate, everything that you need is available down here. Just works basically flawlessly. A lot of manual controls for the climate control and to increase and decrease the temperature. You also have manual buttons on the steering wheel to set the cruise control, to decrease and increase the sound, but also control the different setups of the car. So if you want some louder exhaust, you can have that. Softer suspension, stiffer suspension, more aggressive steering is all there. And the digital gauge cluster. Everything that you need to have is there. Speed, revs, and the temperature of the gearbox, the oil, those things that are necessary when you go off-road really quickly and you stress the components of the car. You have the necessary information to be safe. I talked about in the rear that this is a really good interior, and I really mean that. Nothing rattles, no sounds, good choice of quality materials. They have incorporated stitching really well, good choice of leather and metal accents around the interior. They worked a lot with different colors as well. They have a red middle part here on the steering wheel, some lighter gray around. Just looks really good. Of course, very American, but I kind of like that. To control your F-150 Raptor, there are many buttons to press. Going down to the right here, you have drive mode push. So this push button locks the rear differential. If you twist the drive mode, there are normal, sport, trailer assist and slippery. But if you twist to the right here, terrain, Baja and rock crawl. And all of the different settings changes the digital gauge cluster. So if you're driving on Baja, you have the necessary dial, and if you drive over rocks, rock crawl, you have the necessary information about incline and stuff like that. You also have buttons up here over the infotainment screen, and with the different drive modes, the car goes from either two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive to four-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive low. But you can also select how the car is set up manually through these buttons down here. So right now the car is in 2 high. I can choose to go into 4 high or 4 automatic or 4 low. So to have that manual control over the entire car is also really, really nice. This car just feels like a luxury car driving down the road. The suspension, how high you sit, the quietness inside, and how well built this car is. It is big and it's American, but it is a specific sort of luxury that you get or feel when you drive this car. And it's quite intoxicating driving it. You feel literally unstoppable driving this car. Unevenness in the terrain, speed humps, broken roads, small children, there's nothing that will stop you. But this car is not meant to be used in Europe. This car is way too big for a parking garage, for any parking space, and to drive this on a side road, you clench your buttocks every time that you pass a truck or bus. There's quite a lot of people that have complained that this doesn't have a V8, and for a long time it didn't. It had a V8, then it had a V6, and it still has a V6. And the problem was that the regular V8s that were in the lower spec cars were already so powerful, and fitting the Coyote V8 into this car wouldn't give such an increase in horsepower or specifically torque. So the turbocharged V6 with 700 Nm of torque fits this car so amazingly well, and 460 horsepower, well, that's nothing to scoff about. Basically, Ford Performance had to wait, and with the introduction of the Mustang GT500 and the introduction of the Ram TRX, the Raptor R could be introduced with the supercharged V8 from the GT500. This Raptor, or regular Raptor, this isn't regular by any means, is still as capable as the Raptor R, just with less horsepower and a V6. And speaking of sound, well, it doesn't have the V8 rumble that a V8 gives you. But this V6 sounds incredibly well, especially with the upgraded exhaust that comes with the updated F-150 Raptor. So for the very few people that will actually take this off-road, well, how does it handle that part? It doesn't lack any power, that's for sure. The turbocharged V6 gives plenty of torque and also plenty of power. It's a heavy car though, and very long, which surprisingly makes it easy to catch when the rear steps out, and not nervous at all. A surprisingly bitey front end with some feedback, a four-wheel drive system doesn't send that much power to the rear, and you really need to push it to make it step out. And a traction control that is too intervening even when turned off creates a fun but controllable off-road experience. The suspension have multiple settings from ultra soft to kinda sporty, and they're perfectly tuned to suit the terrain you're driving on at every moment. All in all, it feels predominantly set up for the more flowy, fast off-road terrain where the weight and power really shines, rather than the really big rocks with big descents. The Ford F-150 Raptor is a monster truck for the road. Obviously not made for European roads, but that is kinda the point. You are higher than everybody else, you are more than everybody else. It's excess the way it should be. And the fact that you can buy this car straight from the dealership and then just treat it like absolute heck, and it will take everything, says so much about the capabilities of this Raptor. It is not cheap. 1.7 million Swedish kronor is what these cars are imported cost. Hopefully it will get a little bit less when Hedin US will import them. This is the V6, and I hope that the Raptor R will come to Europe to compete with the Ram TRX. But the Raptor, what a machine.